The morning sun filtered through the floor-to-ceiling windows of their penthouse apartment as Elena Martinez quietly sipped her coffee, watching her husband Marcus rush around in his typical pre-meeting frenzy. To him, she was simply the supportive wife who managed their home while he climbed the corporate ladder at his marketing firm. If only he knew that the home management she did each morning involved overseeing a renewable energy empire worth $1.2 billion. Elena had built Martinez Clean Solutions from nothing, starting in a garage 7 years ago with solar panel prototypes and wind energy innovations. Her company now powered entire cities across 3 states, but she had carefully kept this secret from Marcus since the day they met at a coffee shop 5 years ago. She remembered that first conversation when he'd been impressed by her simple job as a freelance consultant. Something about his genuine smile and easy laugh had made her want to be loved for Elena the person, not Elena the billionaire. So she'd crafted a careful fiction, modest freelance work, family money that explained their comfortable lifestyle, and a preference for staying home rather than attending his work events. "The Henderson account presentation is today," Marcus said, adjusting his tie. "If we land this, it could mean a promotion to senior partner." Elena nodded supportively, though she knew Henderson Industries had already signed a $50 million contract with her company last month. The irony wasn't lost on her that Marcus was probably pitching to people who were already her clients. "You'll do great," she said softly, the same encouragement she'd given him dozens of times. After he left, Elena walked to her home office, a space Marcus rarely entered, believing it was just where she did her little consulting projects. She opened her laptop and joined her daily executive meeting via video call. "Good morning, Elena." James Rivera, her business partner and co, appeared on screen. "The European expansion is ahead of schedule, and we just received approval for the wind farm project in Texas." As Elena discussed quarterly projections and merger opportunities, her phone buzzed with a text from her friend Carmen. "Girl, check Instagram. You need to see this." With growing dread, Elena opened the app and found herself staring at a photo of Marcus at an upscale restaurant, his arm around a stunning woman with long blonde hair and perfect makeup. The woman had tagged herself, "Dinner with my amazing man Redheart @ Sophia__official." Elena's hands trembled slightly as she scrolled through Sophia's profile. An Instagram influencer with 800K followers, posting pictures from expensive vacations, designer clothes, and intimate moments with Marcus that spanned back 3 months. 3 months of lies. 3 months of him coming home to her, kissing her cheek, and pretending to be the devoted husband while building a life with someone else. The woman who had built an empire from nothing felt her carefully constructed world shift beneath her feet. Elena stared at her reflection in the mirror of the most exclusive salon in the city. The transformation was remarkable. Her usually simple brown hair now fell in glossy waves. Professional makeup accentuated features she'd kept understated for years, and the designer emerald dress hugged her figure perfectly. She looked like a completely different person. "You look absolutely stunning, Ms. Rodriguez," the stylist said, using the fake name Elena had provided. Tonight was the Green Energy Innovation Summit, an event she knew Marcus would attend as he'd been trying to break into the environmental sector for months. What he didn't know was that Elena had organized this very summit through her company's connections, and she would be attending as Isabella Rodriguez, a mysterious investor from Mexico looking to fund sustainable projects. Elena arrived at the luxury hotel ballroom fashionably late. The networking event was in full swing, with Marcus clearly visible across the room schmoozing with potential clients. She watched him for a moment, noting how animated and charming he became around people who could advance his career. Taking a deep breath, Elena approached the bar and ordered a martini. Within minutes, she felt a presence beside her. "I don't believe we've met," a familiar voice said. "Marcus Chen from Dynamic Marketing Solutions." Elena turned slowly, her heart pounding as she looked into the eyes of the man she'd shared a bed with just that morning. There wasn't even a flicker of recognition in his gaze, only the predatory interest she'd seen him use on potential clients. "Isabella Rodriguez," she replied in a slightly altered accent she'd practiced. "I'm considering some investments in the renewable energy sector." Marcus's eyes lit up like a slot machine hitting jackpot. "What a coincidence. My firm specializes in marketing for green energy companies. Perhaps we could discuss some opportunities." For the next hour, Elena watched her husband of 3 years transform into someone she barely recognized. He was smoother, more confident, and utterly focused on impressing her. He bought her drinks, told elaborate stories about his successful campaigns, and even lied about his company's size and influence. "You know," Marcus said, leaning closer, "I find intelligent women who care about the environment incredibly attractive." Elena's stomach churned. "Is that so? And what does your wife think of your environmental interests?" Marcus waved dismissively. "My wife? She's more of a homebody. Sweet girl, but she doesn't really understand business. She prefers to stay home with her little hobbies while I handle the real world." The casual cruelty of his words hit Elena like a physical blow. Her little hobbies funded their entire lifestyle, including the expensive suit he was wearing and the luxury car he'd driven here. "That must be limiting for you," Elena managed to say. "It is," Marcus sighed dramatically. "Sometimes a man needs stimulating conversation with someone who shares his ambitions. Someone like you." His hand brushed against hers on the bar. "Would you like to have dinner tomorrow night? I know this amazing place." Elena felt something break inside her chest. This wasn't a moment of weakness or a mistake, this was calculated betrayal. He was actively pursuing another woman while describing his wife as a burden. "I'll think about it," she said, handing him a business card with Isabella's fake number. As she walked away, Marcus called out, "I hope to hear from you soon, Isabella. I think we could have something very special." Elena didn't look back. She'd gotten exactly what she came for, proof that her husband would betray her without hesitation given the opportunity. The man she'd loved and protected by hiding her success saw her as nothing more than a convenient placeholder while he searched for someone better. In the taxi home, Elena's phone buzzed with a text from Marcus, working late on the Henderson pitch. "Don't wait up. Love you." She screenshot the message and filed it away with the dozens of others. Tomorrow, she would begin planning her next move. But tonight, she allowed herself to cry for the marriage that had been built on lies from both sides, though only one of them had been protecting love, while the other had been protecting his ego. The next morning, Elena watched Marcus leave for work with a kiss on her cheek and promises to celebrate their anniversary that weekend. She knew he was actually meeting Sophia Loren for a morning yoga session, based on the Instagram story she'd seen at 6 a.m. Elena had spent the sleepless night creating a comprehensive plan. If Marcus wanted to play games, she would show him how they were really played. But first, she needed to understand the full scope of his deception. She called James from her office. "I need you to run a complete background check on Sophia Loren, finances, connections, everything. Also, I want surveillance on Marcus for the next week." "Elena, are you sure about this?" James asked gently. He'd been her business partner for 4 years and had become like a brother to her. "Maybe you should just confront him directly." "He's had months to be honest with me," Elena replied. "I need to know exactly who I married before I decide what to do next." By afternoon, she had her answers. The private investigator's report painted a disturbing picture. Marcus hadn't just been unfaithful, he'd been living an entirely fabricated life. He'd been taking Sophia to expensive restaurants using credit cards Elena didn't know existed, had rented a downtown apartment where they spent afternoons together, and had even introduced Sophia to his colleagues as his girlfriend at work events. The financial investigation revealed something even worse. Marcus had been slowly siphoning money from their joint accounts to fund his double life. Money that Elena had earned and deposited, believing it was supporting their shared future. That evening, Elena prepared for the most difficult performance of her life. When Marcus arrived home with flowers and apologies for being so busy lately, she smiled and accepted his kiss, all while knowing exactly where he'd spent his afternoon. "How was your day, honey?" she asked, setting the table for dinner. "The usual client meetings," Marcus lied smoothly. "Actually, there's an investor I've been courting, Isabella Rodriguez. She's interested in funding some environmental projects. Could be huge for my career." Elena's fork paused halfway to her mouth. He was actually bragging to her about trying to cheat on her with her own alter ego. "That sounds promising," she managed. "She's sophisticated. Really understands business in a way that—" He caught himself before finishing the comparison, but Elena heard the unspoken words. Over the following days, Elena maintained her double life with surgical precision. During the day, she ran her billion-dollar empire and collected evidence of Marcus's betrayal. At night, she played the devoted wife while he texted both her and Sophia, crafting different versions of the same lies. The breaking point came when Elena, still disguised as Isabella, agreed to meet Marcus for lunch. She watched from across the restaurant as he nervously checked his appearance in his phone's camera, clearly believing he was about to seduce a wealthy investor. But he wasn't alone. Sophia Loren walked in and joined him at the table. Elena's blood ran cold as she realized the depth of his manipulation. He was planning to use Sophia to help him charm Isabella, using one affair to facilitate another betrayal. She watched as they rehearsed their strategy, with Sophia agreeing to accidentally run into them during the meal to make Marcus appear more desirable. The casual cruelty of it took Elena's breath away. He wasn't just cheating, he was treating both women like chess pieces in his game of ambition and ego. Elena quietly left the restaurant and drove to her company headquarters. Standing in her corner office, looking out at the city she'd helped power with clean energy, she made her decision. Marcus had chosen to see her as weak and invisible. Tomorrow, at his most important presentation of the year, she would show him just how visible she could be. She picked up her phone and dialed her lawyer. "David, it's Elena Martinez. I need you to prepare some documents for me, and contact the Henderson Industries executives. Tell them I'll be attending their presentation tomorrow personally." It was time for Marcus to learn what happened when you betrayed someone who actually held all the power. The Henderson Industries boardroom was packed with executives, potential clients, and investors. Marcus stood at the front, his presentation slides gleaming on the large screen behind him. He looked confident, polished, ready to deliver the pitch that would transform his career. Elena sat in the back row, wearing a simple black suit and her natural appearance. No Isabella Rodriguez disguise today. Most people in the room didn't notice her, which was exactly how she'd planned it for years. But today, that invisibility would serve a very different purpose. "Ladies and gentlemen," Marcus began, "Dynamic Marketing Solutions is uniquely positioned to revolutionize how we communicate sustainability to the modern consumer." Elena watched him deliver his rehearsed lines, knowing that every statistic he quoted, every success story he claimed, was built on contracts her company had actually secured. The irony was almost poetic. He was pitching himself as an expert in an industry she had quietly dominated for years. "Our innovative approach has already attracted interest from major investors," Marcus continued, clicking to his next slide, "including the renowned Isabella Rodriguez, who has committed to exploring partnership opportunities with our firm." Elena's jaw tightened. Even here, in his moment of supposed triumph, he was building his success on lies about her. 20 minutes into his presentation, Marcus opened the floor for questions. Elena stood up slowly, her movement drawing attention from around the room. "I have a question," she said, her voice carrying clearly across the boardroom. Marcus squinted toward the back, recognition dawning slowly on his face. "Elena, what are you doing here?" "I'm here because Henderson Industries is one of my oldest clients," Elena replied, walking toward the front of the room. "They've been purchasing renewable energy solutions from my company, Martinez Clean Solutions, for over 3 years. A murmur rippled through the room. Several Henderson executives nodded in confirmation. Marcus's face went pale. "Your company? Elena, what are you talking about?" Elena reached the front of the room and turned to face the assembled crowd. "My name is Elena Martinez, and I'm the founder and CEO of Martinez Clean Solutions. We've generated $1.2 billion in revenue and power sustainable energy systems across 12 states. The room erupted in whispers. Marcus stumbled backward, his presentation forgotten. "But that's impossible," he said weakly. You stay home, you do consulting." "I stayed home because I valued our marriage," Elena replied, her voice steady despite the pain in her chest. "I hid my success because I wanted you to love Elena the person, not Elena the billionaire. But instead of protecting our love, I enabled your lies." She turned to address the room. "Everything Mr. Chen has presented today is based on contracts and relationships that my company established. His firm has never successfully landed a single renewable energy account." Marcus grabbed her arm. "Elena, You can't do this. We can work this out. I love you. Elena pulled free and reached into her briefcase, removing a folder of photographs. Is this love, Marcus? These pictures of you with Sophia Loren? The apartment you rented for your affair? The credit cards you opened in our name to fund your double life? She handed copies to the Henderson executives. Or perhaps you call love the fact that you've been trying to seduce an investor named Isabella Rodriguez, who was actually me in disguise, while telling her your wife was just a simple homebody who didn't understand your ambition. The silence in the room was deafening. Marcus's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. Elena addressed the Henderson team directly. I'm formally terminating any consideration of contracts with Dynamic Marketing Solutions. Their practices are unethical and their claims are fraudulent. She paused, looking back at her husband. I'm also filing for divorce and pursuing charges for financial fraud. As she walked toward the door, Marcus called out desperately, Elena, please. I can explain everything. I never meant for. You meant every single choice you made, Elena interrupted without turning around. You saw me as invisible, and now I'm making myself seen. The difference is, when I was invisible, I was building something real. When you thought you were invisible, you were destroying everything we had. The boardroom door closed behind her with a soft click, leaving Marcus standing alone in front of a room full of witnesses to his downfall. Within hours, news of the confrontation would spread throughout the industry. His reputation, his career prospects, and his marriage, all casualties of his own deception. Elena walked to her car with her head held high. For the first time in years, she felt completely, authentically herself. 6 months later, Elena knelt in the rich soil of the community garden she had funded in the downtown district. The morning sun warmed her back as she carefully planted tomato seedlings alongside a group of local volunteers. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, her clothes were dirt-stained, and she had never felt more at peace. Excuse me, a gentle voice said behind her. Are you Elena Martinez? She looked up to see a man in his early 30s with kind eyes and soil under his fingernails, holding a watering can. Unlike the usual way people approached her, with calculation or at her wealth, his expression held simple curiosity and respect. I am, she replied, wiping her hands on her gardening gloves. I'm David Park. I run the literacy program at the community center next door. He gestured toward a modest building. I wanted to thank you for making this garden possible. The kids in our program have been learning so much about where their food comes from. Elena smiled genuinely. That was exactly the goal. Would you like to see the greenhouse we're building? As they walked through the garden paths, David pointed out plants the children had named and small handmade signs marking different vegetables. His passion for education and genuine care for the community shone through every word. You know, he said as they reached the greenhouse construction site, I have to admit, when I heard Elena Martinez was funding this project, I expected someone very different. Different how? Elena asked, though she could guess. More corporate. More distant. Most wealthy donors write checks and disappear. He paused, watching her examine the greenhouse framework. But you're here every weekend, actually working alongside everyone else. It's refreshing. Elena felt something she hadn't experienced in years, the simple pleasure of being appreciated for her actions rather than her money or her success. I believe if you're going to invest in something, you should understand it from the ground up. Over the following weeks, Elena and David's friendship grew naturally. He would arrive at the garden with coffee for both of them, and they would work side by side, talking about everything from sustainable farming to childhood memories. He knew she was successful, but he seemed far more interested in her thoughts on composting techniques and her ideas for expanding the literacy program. One evening, as they sat on a bench watching the sunset paint the garden in golden light, David said, "Can I ask you something personal?" Elena tensed slightly, waiting for questions about her wealth or her very public divorce. "What made you want to create this space?" he asked instead. Elena considered her answer carefully. "I spent years hiding who I really was, thinking it would protect the people I loved. But I learned that relationships built on pretense, even well-intentioned pretense, eventually crumble. This garden represents something different. Everything here grows in the open, with honest soil and real sunlight. David nodded thoughtfully. My ex-wife used to say I was too simple, that I didn't have enough ambition. She wanted me to be someone I wasn't. He picked up a handful of soil, letting it run through his fingers. But I think there's something to be said for knowing who you are and being comfortable with that. There is, Elena agreed. Though sometimes it takes losing everything built on lies to appreciate something real. 3 months later, as they harvested the first vegetables from their garden, Elena realized she had found something she'd never had with Marcus, a relationship where both people could be completely authentic. David loved her passion for sustainability, her hands-on approach to philanthropy, and her genuine care for others. He admired her business acumen without being intimidated by it, and he had never once asked her for money, connections, or favors. When he finally kissed her among the tomato plants on a warm summer evening, it tasted like honesty and felt like coming home. Elena's phone buzzed with a text from James. Martina's Clean Solutions just got approved for the international expansion. You've built something incredible. She smiled, looking around at the thriving garden, the children playing in the community center, and David planning lessons for the fall literacy program. She had indeed built something incredible. Not just a business empire, but a life rooted in truth, surrounded by people who valued authenticity over artifice. For the first time in her adult life, Elena Martinez was exactly who she appeared to be, and it was enough. Life lesson: authentic relationships require mutual honesty and respect. When we hide our true selves, whether from fear, manipulation, or misguided protection, we prevent genuine connection and often enable others to treat us poorly. True love sees and appreciates who we really are.